Yo, what's up everybody? It's me, the Unweeb here, back after several months now before this What If, and a lot more people have joined us, so welcome to the Weebdom, everybody. If you have not heard that I've done this What If, you can always go back in the video timeline, go check it out. My voice and my scripting was not as good as it is now, in my opinion, but we can just get into it now. We'll do a recap of what happened last time. But anyway, let's just get right into part 6 for What If Deku Had Chakra. Blood sprinkles as it sprays over the camera. As from our perspective, we see Tenya Ida's older brother as he's being brutally murdered and stabbed by the killer known as Stain. Stain would be laughing as he yells about all these fake heroes proclaiming themselves to this world as bringers of justice and peace, when in reality they're all money-grubbing liars. He will continue this as he stabs a knife into Tenya's brother's spine. As this takes place, suddenly we see some heroes rush around the corner, as Stain knows he can't take them all. He rushes away as he leaves the body behind, as the camera darkens. We see Tenya Ida walking around as he looks rather worried. We then see Deku. Deku can sense that the chakra inside of Ida is actually seemingly worried, as he had gotten a call earlier, but he hadn't heard what it was about. Hey Ida, are you okay? You can tell us about anything, Deku and Uraraka would say as they'd walk towards Ida. Ida would make a fake smile as he tells him that there's nothing wrong, as he says that he has his own stuff that he has to worry about with family business. Ida would have gotten the call by now that his brother had been brutally injured in the attack from Stain, and now he was rather worried about him. Ida would immediately leave to go and visit his brother in the hospital to see if he was alright. As now that Ida was gone, the rest of the sports stadium was all heading out. As the UA Sports Stadium is finally cleared out and everyone gets back to their classes with the students returning back home, everyone takes a sigh of fresh air as the next portion of UA's yearly semester schedule would begin. With now everyone from the sports festival being hired to go on their own work studies, with Deku not receiving any work studies offers except for one, while Ida on the other hand had chosen a very specific city, Hosu City, for one purpose: revenge. We have a small flashback to see when Ida had visited his older brother at the hospital. Ida, his older brother would say, when you go for your work study, I want you to pick your hero name as Ingenium. Ida and the rest of the heroes now, the hero students, would be picking their names in class. This took place a few days before all of them would be sent off on their work studies. Ida hesitated and didn't pick his name as Ingenium, and simply left it as his own name. Deku's turn, on the other hand, or Midoriya, was still deciding on what he wanted to be called. He was thinking about having it have something to do with his chakra, or being a shinobi, as, unlike everyone else here, he actually knows the history of quirks and where they came from. He thinks on it for a while until he's the last one left. When he's finally called upon by midnight and he walks up to the stage of his board, he finishes scribbling down the rest of his name. As now Midoriya lifts up his board, he shows that his hero name is going to be Kage. As he says this is his hero name, everyone, including me, thinks it's an excellent name. But now what we know is Midoriya, or now Kage, has shown a lot of abilities that shinobi or assassins would use. Kage was the name he just chose based off of what he had heard from Rikito Sennin, or the Sage of Six Paths, and so he decided that it was a good name because those were the leaders back during the old times, and he wants to become the strongest hero, to be a new leader. As he sits back down, worried about if his decision was the right one, we then snap back to reality, where we see that now Ida had left for his work study in Hosu. Midoriya would quickly run as he tries to catch up with Ida before he leaves. He puts his hand on his shoulder. Ida turns around with dark eyes. And this is when he locks eyes with Midoriya, and Midoriya asks if there's anything he needs, and that he's his friend. Ida would nod and say that he's alright, as he walks away slowly into the darkness. We have another quick flashback as we see Midoriya's choice, and what he had to decide on what he would be doing for the next weeks that he'd be taking his training. As we all know, however, unlike the original, our Midoriya in this timeline does not possess One For All. Instead, he had let All Might go during the original sequence where they had met earlier that year. So, this means that Midoriya, we'll be calling him Deku, even though his hero name is Kage in this timeline. Deku would not be going to Gran Torino for training to harness One For All because he doesn't have One For All. Because in this version, now Mirio has One For All instead, which I believe would have happened in the original if Deku had not come into the picture. Anyway, getting back on topic, the two offers that Deku did receive, though, however, were from two very interesting parties. They are from the hero Edgeshot and the hero called Eraserhead. Deku would take the opportunity to learn as much as he can from Edgeshot, as Edgeshot is known as being a hero similar to what he hopes to desire, as he then takes up the opportunity to be trained by Edgeshot. When Midoriya gets to Edgeshot's HQ, or where his hero facility is, once he finally makes it to his official work studies area, Edgeshot, along with all of Edgeshot's fellow associates, welcome him into the building, as well as into the workplace itself. Deku would begin training immediately with Edgeshot, as Edgeshot would help him refine his speed, as well as with him having to use his hand signs. Him showing Edgeshot how his quirk Chakra works, it has Edgeshot rather intrigued, as after seeing his techniques that he had used during the sports festival, he was rather impressed with what Deku could do, and decided that he should invite him there. The hero known as Kage's first mission under the work study of Edgeshot would begin as a reconnaissance mission. They were to begin investigating where they could find the Nomus from the incident before that took place during the USJ incident. Now, Deku would be sent on his mission with Edgeshot and some other subordinates of his, as they decide to look around some city areas to find some hangars. After a while, Kage, or Deku, will be addressing him as Deku just to make it simpler. Deku and the team would be heading around each city block as they jump from rooftop to rooftop. Deku's hero outfit, as I've stated before, looks like that of a shinobi. Deku is jumping from rooftop to rooftop when he sees a small building hidden between the crevice of two other larger ones. As he's using his chakra to stick to the walls, walking along the side, now with the cover of night defending him in his dark clothing, as he looks down, he would see that there would be a purple light coming from within the building. After going inside the building to check out what's going on, he would see through the glass on the outside that inside there were some large tanks. He would immediately report back to Edgeshot, who would take this into consideration and eventually report back to the Hero Association. Now that that's been covered, this is when Deku would have time to look at his watch and to check up on how everyone else is doing. He would send a text message to the rest of the UA's class 1A in order to see how everyone's doing, and everyone would be pretty either respond or say that they were doing well. Uraraka would send a picture of her doing her workout stuff with Death Gun. After that, and everything else, everyone else responds except for one person. Ida doesn't even show the rest of messages being read. Deku would think about this for a while and then remember what he had said back at the train station. Deku would ask Edgeshot if they were heading to Hosu City anytime soon. As it turns out, the Hero Association had a small location located inside of Hosu City. Edgeshot would agree with taking Deku with, but he has no idea of why he would want to, as Deku just tells him that he had to check up on one of his friends who was working there, as he hadn't responded for a long time, which was very much unlike him. He thinks back to how Ida usually is, with being reciprocative to pretty much everything. As Deku and Edgeshot have boarded the train, as they're driving along the countryside getting towards where Hosu is, suddenly a large crash can be heard as both Deku and Edgeshot leap into action, seeing the side of the train burst open as a white Nomu comes into the battlefield. They would now see that a Nomu has entered the city. Edgeshot would tackle the Nomu out of the way as he begins using his quirk to become needle-like and thread itself through it. He would tell Deku to get into the city to find if there was anything else and that he'd catch up with him later. Deku would nod as he covers his face with his mask and pulls the hood up over his head. Deku would begin climbing the wall of one of the buildings using his chakra footing, and as he gets to the top, he would then push chakra into his eyes to expand his vision of viewing. As he does this, he would look down and into each alleyway between the buildings as he jumps around, hoping to find where Ida could be. He decides to need to borrow a jutsu that he had learned from a while ago, and decides to use the summoning jutsu. Deku bites the side of his finger as blood spills from the wound. He then slams his hand into the ground as the jutsu begins to unravel across the top of the building. "Summoning jutsu!" he would say as loudly as possible into the darkness, when suddenly a large poof of smoke comes and a hawk comes flying out of nowhere. Deku jumps on top of the hawk as they begin flying around the city. As he looks down, he then sees that the hawk can see anything through its vision. The hawk would then make a large chirping sound, as Deku would then see down there the large white shining armor of Ida. He would jump off the hawk as he desummons it, falling towards the ground below. Just as he's about to see the killer Stain about to stab his blade into Ida, Deku would dive bomb just between Ida and Stain as he pulls the kunai out quickly from his shirt and blocks the attack of the sword, defending it as it goes flying away from them. "Midoriya?" Ida would say as he sees Deku standing there in his full hero suit. Deku would quickly turn around and tell Ida to get out of there. Before Ida can say anything, however, the killer Stain begins to rush towards Deku. As Deku turns around just in time, he dives out of the way as this man's superhuman speed seems abnormal, and he wonders what his quirk is. He can sense the rage inside of this man as he begins to pull blades out, trying to kill him for taking his prey. He would then see that Deku tries to grab Ida as they try to escape and run away, worrying about saving them before trying to take him down. He would think that this boy is a true hero after seeing his actions. Deku, after trying to pull Ida away to safety, would turn around to see that that Stain had been waiting for him. As he turns back, Deku would pull out two kunai, which seemed to look like trench knives. As he pulls these two blades out, and as he walks towards Stain, he begins to charge chakra into his hands and fills the blades to create chakra blades. As he does this, he holds his hands up and tells Stain that he's ready to go. As Stain rushes towards him with his blade, Deku would then use aerodynamics as well as his chakra flow to push himself across each building and climb into the sky. Him and Stain would become in aerodynamic sync as Deku uses his blades to slice at Stain and cut his face while evading each attack. After a while, Deku decides he needs to finish this as he puts his blades away. He quickly begins charging chakra into his hand as he begins spinning it to create the Rasengan. As he rushes forward towards Stain, Stain can see this blue ball of energy. Stain holds his sword up ready to cut the attack in half, and just as Deku shoves the Rasengan into Stain, the sword between it snaps from the Rasengan's power as it slams into Stain, causing him to go flying back and crash into a building wall, causing cracks to appear across it. This is when Todoroki would appear. Just as Deku had turned his back, Stain had licked some of the blood he had got off of a wound on his leg. Deku falls to the ground as he can't move, and Todoroki causes a blast of flame to save the day, shooting at Stain, causing him to go flying away, with his sword clattering to the ground as it falls out of his hand, skittering across the stone floor. This is when Todoroki would use an ice shield to block all his comrades, as now Stain has a wall of ice to get through. Stain would start shattering through the ice with his sword, as Deku would begin to recover, slowly being able to move again. Ida, now having fully recovered from Stain's blood paralysis, would get up as he sees the other hero who had been sitting there, who Stain was about to kill. He would grab this hero as Ida and him would begin to escape. Todoroki would be sitting there as Ida comes back, now having hit the other hero. Ida, Todoroki, and Deku would have to wait as the ice shield finally breaks and Stain comes back in full strength. Todoroki would ask if Deku has any chakra left for his attacks, and Deku would nod, saying he has about half of it still. Todoroki would say he'd support him from behind using long-range attacks, and that Ida can get in from attacks using his speed. Deku would get in front as the brawler. Deku charges his chakra and says thanks for the concern, as he begins to create shadow clones using the shadow clone jutsu. These clones begin rushing towards Stain, as Stain slices through each of them with a poof of smoke, causing them to cloud his vision. Deku seemingly comes out of nowhere as he appears behind Stain, with the Chidori in hands, and slices through Stain, seemingly. This was an afterimage, however, as Stain had jumped out of the way just in time, with his blood-red scarf left in place to distract Deku. Deku deactivates the Chidori as he turns around to see that now Stain was in the air. He creates an air bullet jutsu and shoots it towards Stain, which hits him out of the air as he feels damage in his lower left ribs. Stain would fall to the ground as Deku begins rushing towards, jumping off of each side of the building to gain speed. As Stain would then be kicked into the air by Deku, Deku would begin charging another attack. Deku begins charging Chakra into his hand as he creates the last Sharingan he can muster. The small blue ball of energy begins to form as it spins around with its perfect Chakra control. Deku looks to Ida as the two of them begin to build speed. Deku jumps on the wall as he begins using his Chakra control to run across it, and Ida uses his reciprocal burst to kick Stain. Suddenly, the Rasengan as well as the reciprocal burst connect into Stain's body as an explosion can be heard and seen across the area. Stain falls to the ground, left unconscious, as Deku falls down to the ground and lays there for a while, breathing heavily, feeling that all his chakra has been drained from using so many attacks in a row. Todoroki would pick up Deku and carry him on his back, asking if he's okay. He would nod as he asked how Todoroki had found them. Todoroki would say that on the app that they had installed on each other's phones to track each other, he had seen that Deku had been moving to Hosa and assumed that he had been going to check on Ida. Due to him being in Hosa as well for missions for reporting to the Hero HQ of an Endeavor, he had decided that it'd be better to go and check up on them, as it was odd to have him not respond like that. Deku would say thanks as the teammates would begin to head out. This is when we go over to see that Endeavor is taking care of some of the higher class Nomu, as well as Edgeshot taking care of the Nomu in the city. The League of Villains would now retreat as they don't want to get caught up in the fight, now seeing that Stain had been captured. The large gray Nomu with wings would grab Deku out of seemingly Todoroki's back as he begins to fly away. Todoroki, Endeavor, and the rest of the heroes, including Edgeshot, who had now met up, would be shocked to see Deku being carried away. Suddenly, Stain would reawaken as his intense bloodlust would cover the entire area. It almost paralyzed them as he leaps towards the gray Nomu and stabs it before he dies. Stain would use his body to cushion Deku's fall, as the crunching sound of bones would cause Deku to be worried about what had just happened. Deku would then be caught by Edgeshot as he rushes forward to pick him up and see if he's alright. Deku would have a few broken bones from the attacks, but Stain would be completely dead. His left lung had been punctured by one of his shattered ribs after he had used that stunt to kill the Nomu that had been taking Deku. He'd be sent to the hospital to where his body would be taken care of further from there. At this point, Deku would say goodbye to Ida and Todoroki and say he'd meet them back at school, as he heads back with Edgeshot to return to Edgeshot's HQ. A few weeks have passed now, and all the students would be heading back to UA, as now the examinations for their work studies is over. Deku would have learned a lot during the past few weeks, as he had learned more taijutsu skills from Edgeshot than he had thought were possible, as well as he had used his chakra to mimic Edgeshot's quirk, which is a new ability he'd learned to pick up. After what he had heard from Rikido Sennin, that chakra had been what had eventually developed into individual quirks into each individual person, he decided that it might be a worthwhile test to see if he could copy quirks using his chakra. Now that Deku knows that he can use his chakra to mirror that of quirks, he has already practiced mastering and using Edgeshot's quirk, which allows his body to change into a smaller, more compact, needle-like version. Deku has used this many times to practice his aerodynamic movements, as well as to get better in general. Edgeshot's very proud of the development that Deku has learned, as well as the fact that he can do such incredible things with his very versatile quirk. Edgeshot would send Deku off and say that once he graduates UA, he's welcome to become a sidekick of his if he wants. This is when Deku would wave goodbye to his master and say he'd see him again. Now that Deku has returned to UA, this is when the final testing arc would begin. As now, Deku and his teammates and fellow students would have to take on their teachers to pass the examination. As the teams were being decided, it would be decided that Deku, the hero Kage, and Katsuki Bakugo, aka the hero Ground Zero, would be placed on the same team against All Might. As the two of them had both displayed rather versatile abilities that would maybe even stand a chance against All Might. All Might would see promise in Deku's ability in Chakra and think that it has some very unique traits to it that he'd like to test in battle. As the two are finally put to the test against All Might, Bakugo would turn over as he makes an annoyed sound after seeing that he's on the same team as Deku. "You better not get in my way, you damn Deku!" Bakugo would say with his grisly voice, being annoyed that he has to team up with this loser. Deku would sigh as he tells Bakugo that even if he doesn't like it, they're still on the same team anyway, and they're comrades, so they better do their best to get together out there. Deku would walk out onto the field with Bakugo as he pulls his hood and mask up over his face. Deku would, as he walks forward, be a bit different as he thinks about how he's going to defeat his favorite hero. As after he had grown up and learned about Chakra, his aspirations on heroes had changed a little bit. He still believes that it's good to have someone smiling out in the open as the large pillar of hope. But Deku also believes that it's important to have heroes in the shadows, those who can dive into the darkness and find those deep within it. Deku would begin going to an alleyway as he tells Bakugo that he'll be taking the sidelines for this, as he's going to go investigate and scout ahead to see if they can find All Might. Bakugo would tell him that he can do whatever he wants, as he begins to use his explosions to cover more ground as he flies forward. Deku would, as he climbs the building, would be sneaking through the dark alleyways he can search for All Might. As he eventually senses All Might's chakra signature, he would see that he's charging up an attack. He would warn Bakugo quickly by sending a kunai with a note tag on it, telling him that All Might was on his way. Bakugo would quickly grab the kunai and throw it on the ground, making a sound as he thinks about that stupid ninja. Deku would continue walking through the hallways of the backs of buildings as he eventually hears the explosion from One For All's remnants of All Might towards Bakugo. Bakugo would be shot back as All Might would wonder where Deku young Midoriya could have gone. Midoriya would come from behind as he slams the Rasengan onto All Might's back. All Might seemingly turning around, slamming his hand into Deku. Deku suddenly falls to the ground, looking as though he had died. All Might's worried as suddenly he poofs, showing the substitution jutsu as a wood block falls. Deku would suddenly appear from underground as he sticks his hands up and grabs All Might's legs, trying to pull him down using the Headhunter jutsu. Just as All Might turns around, he smashes his fist into the ground, causing a large explosion in the ground. Deku's shadow clone would disappear. As Deku's on the building, using binoculars to look down to see how All Might's doing, Bakugo would begin going in on the offensive, using a howitzer blast as he goes spinning in towards All Might and blasting him with explosions. Deku would think that only one teammate has to get through in order to succeed, and that if they can get through the gate, then it should be all over. Deku would then think that he also wants to try to take out All Might, though, and then he'll see if he can hold this out a little bit longer. Deku would use a summoning jutsu as he creates a falcon, which he jumps on as he rides high into the sky. Just as Deku is about to see Bakugo get slammed into by another attack of All Might, Deku would come soaring in on his hawk and grab Bakugo as he goes flying out of the way just in time. All Might would look up to see that Deku had summoned some sort of hawk beast, which was now flying through the air. As they continue moving forward, Deku would continue to try and avoid All Might's aerial attacks, as All Might goes using his One For All flying into the air to try and attack them. Deku would quickly create some paper bomb tags as he throws kunai back towards All Might, explosions hitting All Might in the air. Bakugo would take some of the paper tags as he has an idea. He says that he tells Deku to give him some of those stupid weird paper chakra tag thingies. Deku would quickly create some as he gives them to Bakugo, who would take them to his large gauntlets. He says he's going to blow All Might to smithereens as he takes the gauntlets off of his arms and tells Deku to get ready to throw them. He hands one gauntlet to All Might and tells Deku that they're going to throw those gauntlets at All Might, and that as he does so for him to use that one fire thing he can do. Then Deku would say, "You mean the fireball jutsu?" Kacchan would then say whatever. As they both throw their gauntlets towards All Might, Deku would quickly create the hand seals as he weaves them and blows into the hand sign. Suddenly a ball of flames would come flying out of nowhere as it bursts into the two gauntlets, causing a large explosion across the sky. All Might would get blasted towards the ground as he slams into it, causing him to cough up blood, thinking that these kids are actually putting up an amazing fight. This is when Deku decided that they need to get out of the gate immediately. Bakugo would make an annoyed sound. He says, "Ugh, fine." The two of them would fly on their hawk as they get towards the gate, as they finally fly through it just as All Might's about to recover. All Might would get up as the two had passed, as the rest of the teams would take each of their individual tests. After all the teams had either passed or failed, Bakugo and Deku would be congratulated by All Might for putting up such a good fight against him, as well as Deku's and Bakugo's versatility of a plan, having Bakugo go in as the main bait while Deku used his versatile attacks to catch All Might off guard. Deku would say that he still couldn't have beaten him on his own, though, and that if Kacchan hadn't been there was no way they could have taken the win. All Might would go on to explain that even in the hero industry, it's important to have teamwork, as sometimes you have to work with other rival agencies in order to get the work done, when villains are too strong or powerful for one alone. Kacchan and Deku would look at each other before they look away again. All Might would sigh as he then says that they'll be sent on a training camp this summer to where they'll be beginning their next training to see how far they can evolve their quirks. All Might would leave as he reverts back to his normal self, coughing up blood. Deku and Bakugo would return back to Class 1A along with the rest of the people who had passed and those who failed. This is when Aizawa would come into the door, having been fully recovered now with no bandages. He would then come in and say that all the teams had done very well, and that he had something he would like to show them that he believes would be very helpful for them during their training camp. He would activate his quirk as he creates his eraser eyes. Suddenly, one of them has a different shape than the other. His normal one is bright red, as it always had been. However, the one that Deku had borrowed for that second, and given back seemingly using some chakra healing, had grown into a different type of quirk. That's right. After chakra had been applied directly to Aizawa's quirk in his eyes, Deku had actually forcibly unlocked a secret, as Aizawa would be a long-lost descendant of the Uchiha. Aizawa would finally have his Sharingan awakened, to the point where they have 3 Tomoe from the chakra that had been pushed into them. Deku would be shocked he sees his Sharingan, while the rest of the classmates would be confused as to what happened. Aizawa would say that his eyes had become his right eye, the one that he had been taken from him during the USJ incident. He would look at Deku. Would have become much more powerful now, as now he can actually copy movements as well as see ahead of the time of what they're going to do. This other eye that he has now, besides his normal quirk, still maintains the original ability of canceling out people's quirks. However, now he even has the ability to where it doesn't get dry if you leave it open for too long, as this right eye seems to have some sort of resistance to air and other types of attacks. Anyway, my main point is that what you guys need to do during this summer training camp is work on evolving your quirks, just as mine did. Aizawa would play this off as he shows that his quirk had evolved somehow during the fight during the UA. The rest of the students would be shocked and say that they think that they could actually evolve their quirks too. Bakugo would be super excited, thinking that he could probably gain some more cool explosion power, as all of them begin working extra hard. As everyone leaves for the day, excited for the summer training program that would be coming in a few months, Deku would be asked to stay as Aizawa wants to talk to him. Aizawa would ask what Deku had done to his eye during the USJ incident, as this is the first time he'd actually tried using his quirk after then, and this had happened. This is when Deku would explain everything to Aizawa, telling him about how he had pushed chakra into his eye to make it more powerful, and that when he had used it during the attack, he had actually unlocked his Sharingan. The Sharingan? Aizawa would ask, as he has no idea what he's talking about. Deku would explain about how the history of the world had affected him and what his quirk is. He would tell Aizawa how Chakra had created quirks, and that because he had pushed Chakra into Aizawa's eye, he had reverted it back to its original form of what it would have been before it developed into a quirk, which was called the Sharingan, he would go on to say. Aizawa would be intrigued by this, as he then asked how he knows about all this. Deku would say he can't say, and Aizawa would nod, telling him and asking if there's anything else he should be able to know. Deku would tell him that he should be able to lower the amount of Tomoe in his eye, and that would change the effectiveness of it, as well as the use of stamina. Aizawa would then thank him and tell him that he should get ready for the training camp as well, as he thinks that there's some more abilities that he might be able to unlock using his quirk. Aizawa would ask how Edshot's training had gone with him, and Deku would nod, saying that it had gone well. Aizawa would be a little bit bummed out that he hadn't chosen to train with him instead, but Deku would say he didn't want to push Aizawa through anything, as he had known that he had been damaged from the USJ incident still. Deku would leave as he goes home and says hi to his mom, who he hadn't talked to in a while. Inko would be happy to see her son again as they spend the next couple of weeks together, just as if though nothing had happened during the past few months. Eventually the time comes, however, and all the students meet back up, as they now get on the bus on their way to the summer training camp. If you guys want to see the next part for What If Deku Had Chakra, make sure to hit the like button, comment down below what you thought, and subscribe to the channel for more My Hero Academia, Dragon Ball Z, and Naruto What Ifs. I will see all of you guys later. Bye.